Welcome to MMA Fan. My name is Luke Basin. Welcome back to the show for everyone who is already a subscriber to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. First-time guest on the show and professional MMA fighter, Hurricane Hope Chase. Hurricane, welcome to the show.
Thank you for the welcome. So glad to be on the show.
It is great to have you on the show. I had your sister Bridget on the show a couple weeks ago, so saving the best for last, of course, by having you on second. Let's jump in. She had said, I think before we were recording, that some people just call you Hurricane. It's such a great nickname. So let's ask the obvious question. How did you get the nickname Hurricane Hope Chase, and what is it like to be called Hurricane, even without people calling you Hope?
So how that came about is I do double nunchucks, kind of like Michelangelo the Ninja Turtle. And it was actually my dad who gave me the name Hurricane because I was working a combo and we were building it up, and finally I got it up to speed and it was really cool. He's like, whoa, that was like a hurricane. That's it. That's your name. You're Hurricane Hope from now on. So that's how that came about. And Hurricane has a real significance to me. I like fast forward like so many years later, in my second professional bout, I had a fight against this girl named Morgan Hickam, and it was in this smoky stadium down in Tennessee, and it was like open. And everyone was like, oh, the weather said it wasn't going to rain. Of course it rained because we were doing MMA outside. And so when the rain was coming down, it was like everybody else was freaking out. Like, oh my gosh, when are the fight going to happen? What's going on? And I'm like, I know I'm fighting. So I was chill. And then I went in and I knocked her out in 9 seconds.
Well, that's it. So the real reason why it was raining was because Hurricane Hope was there. So that's an easy yes. And that was also your first pro win. Can't get much better than
that was my first
as far as your first pro win goes. Well, there's a lot to cover because I know you and your sister and your parents, you guys run White Viper Karate Gym. Talk about your upbringing in karate and kind of maybe a rough number of karate fights you've had, tournament fights you had, because I know your sister had a bunch. And so what's your rough karate record before you ever got into MMA?
So I would have to do an extensive list, look at all of the tournaments that I went to over the years, because my first competition I had when I was 6. And oh my gosh, I looked like a complete mess when I was fighting, but somehow I won second place. That was like somehow. But anyway, yeah, I do. I have a sport karate record of 20 world titles, 20 sport karate world titles, and I am the first and only individual to win both fighting and traditional kata overall grand champion titles. So it's the people who win the titles versus each other that year. And I did that, and then I repeated history 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, because it was 2013 to 2016. 3 years later, I repeated it, and nobody else did that. And then I won in the creative. So I'm the only person who's won. I'm one of 2 people who've won 5 of the red titles, and the only person who's won it in all 3 categories, contemporary, fighting, and traditional kata.
Wow, that's a lot. And I love how you've competed so much you can't even begin to guess how many sport karate fights you've in, but obviously 20 world titles is definitely indicative of that. Well, that is incredible. It sounds like your second bout of the 2-time that double, winning both sport karate and kata was in 2016. So talk about how you went from 2016 being kata champ and sport karate champ, and then just a year later, you had your debut in MMA. When did you start training MMA, and were you simultaneously taking karate stuff with MMA? And kind of how did that work?
So I'll start from the beginning. Whenever I was about I just earned my black belt in karate, so I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, and uh we watched Chris Cyborg versus Gina Carano, and that um and that was the first time that I saw women fight MMA. And me and my older sister were both watching the same fight at the time, and it didn't click until we saw them walking out. We were like, "Wait, girls can do this too? I'm totally doing that. I'm gonna be the champ. I'm gonna be the best." And our parents were like, "Wait, you really don't?" Because we were getting really serious and hyped about it. She's like, "You don't have to commit right now," but we were like, "Nope, that's it. Like, we want to do that." So from then on, my parents started us on the journey. They got us into national and international, all in the US, but having international competition with sport karate, and um, also got us into boxing. We started with Craig and Faith Wolfley, and then we moved to be coached by Coach Chuck Gerlach. And by the time I was 14, we started training MMA and the ground, the wrestling. So whenever I got to the point where I was just at that time waiting till I turned 18 and it was legal for me to go in the cage, because I had been training it for years. So once in that time that I had won the fighting again in sport karate, I knew that that was the last time I'd be able to fight in sport karate, because I was going to MMA. And once you take the tiger out of the cage, you can't really put it back in. Because sport karate is controlled contact. And I remember being at World Games, and I really just wanted to bloody this girl's nose, like, so bad. But I knew I'd get disqualified, and I really wanted to win the title more than I wanted to bloody her nose. So I held myself back. But that was the kind of fire that had been awakened in me. So I knew that that was my last hurrah with the fighting in the sport karate realm anyway. And oh my gosh, when I debuted in MMA, first off, my heart was running at 1,000,000 miles per hour. I was so nervous. But when I got in there, first time that my knuckles like hit her chin, what I thought was, "Oh, that tasted good." Like, there was no other sensation that described it. That tasted good, and I'm addicted. I'm addicted.
Well, in your first two fights, amateur wise, you won both of them in round one by punches. So obviously, you were super excited to be able to, do full contact. You went 4-0 as an amateur, and not only is that impressive, your record of competition, of their record that they had when they came in against you would have been 11-4. So you fought four ladies that had a combined record of 11-4 when you fought them, if you combine everything, which shows that you were really facing good competition. What was it like going so well through through amateur, and then that was in 2017, 2018, then you turned pro in 2018. So kind of how did your amateur MMA career go? What did it feel like to go so smoothly? And then we'll catch up on your pro career.
So with the amateur MMA, the one thing that was also one of my biggest pet peeves at the time, but the greatest blessing for me overall with my career, was that I couldn't kick to the head in amateur, because if I could, I would have just tried to kick people's heads clean off immediately. But having that limit where I couldn't kick to the head, we fought in Ohio, so I was still allowed to ground and pound. And by the time I fought in Pennsylvania, they let me do advanced amateur because of how I won my previous fights. That limitation made me really build the whole game in like build the whole MMA game and get more well-rounded. And yeah, the everything went like, as far as fights went, they went very, very well. I learned a lot. The only frustrating thing was it was hard to find opponents, which is why the record was so high, because I had had so much experience in sport karate that there were some people who were after my first fight, they were like, how, why was this mismatch? Who matched these people? And I'm like, and the people who were like helping me at the time, and my coaches were like, well, it's her debut, like, no, this was what we could get. And then it was harder to find fights. I had maybe 17 people pull out before my second match that I had.
Well, that is one of the reasons why going pro helps with that, because once you're pro, people are more likely, not that they couldn't, but people are more likely to take fights and things like that. Obviously, your third MMA amateur fight was against Elizabeth Lewis, who was 5-1. So clearly you're coming into your third fight, but with the sport karate background, a lot more experience. Talk about your pro journey. You had something very exciting. You fought for Invicta one time, won by rear naked choke, and then it looks like did a tournament. So talk about fighting for a bigger known promotion like Invicta, and then explain what that tournament was like.
So fighting for Invicta was amazing. It was great. It was a very professional atmosphere. It was something that really opened my eyes to what the big leagues look like after fighting in smaller organizations and the local, like the amateur circuit, and then smaller local pro fights. Coming into Invicta was amazing. All the staff was great, and all the fighters were professional, because everyone was professional, right? Everyone's pros. They got all those the little kinks that you have to work out in the amateur realm were all like kicked out at that time. So that was beautiful. I remember whenever I made my debut and I won that one, I won by rear naked choke. And then right after that, I got to go on to the Phoenix series, which is the tournament that you were talking about. And that was something that was crazy to prepare for, because it was, I think there were 8 of us total. And so I'm preparing for 7 different opponents, because you didn't know who you were going to fight until you were there, and you got drawn like the day before you fought. You didn't know which one of the 7 girls you were going to fight. And you had to prepare for all of them anyway, because any one of them could have moved up the ranks, right? So going into that was a really awesome experience, being in that lineup with those professional women. And then had the first fight, bang, pulled that out. Then in the draw, it ended up being me versus Tanisha Tennant. And a lot of people in the crowd, I remember, they were like, man, can't we have had that one as the main event one of the tournament? Couldn't they have saved this match till later? But it was luck of the draw, right? So that was who I pulled out. And she was a really formidable opponent, and different people had different opinions on who should have won that fight. But it was a great experience nonetheless. And that was right before COVID. I was like literally on the way back. Because my parents had driven up with us, and we were driving back, and they were like, hey, there's this thing going around. You guys should use hand sanitizer on your way back. Like, oh, okay. Didn't think it was going to turn into the crazy thing it did end up turning into. But another thing that was great with Invicta was that I was able to get a fight even through the mess of COVID by the time it was November 2020. Mm-hmm. They were great with that, very professional, and still got me in there, even though it was hard to get people fights. And that one, I love that, because we fought in Fight Church, which was a an old church, a cathedral that had been turned into a boxing gym, and so it smelled like a Rocky movie. It was like all around smelled like a Rocky movie, and that was a really crazy, awesome venue to compete in. Yeah, and that fight was great. I busted my thumb. I broke my thumb in that fight, and my eye got split in the first 10 seconds from a jab, I think, just blood, and broke my thumb in the first 2 minutes. But then later I ended up choking her out too.
Well, there you are. Thanks for bringing us up as far as 2020 goes. It was very cool that Invicta was able to have a card. 247 ended up having two cards in November of 2020, but they ended up being closed to the audience. It was a real, a real sign of Ryan Middleton, the owner of 247, that you'll be fighting for on June 29th, for wanting to give the fighters the opportunity to fight. Because at that point, there was no crowd. Nobody was allowed in other than, just fighters and coaches. And so I know how strange it was November of
Yeah.
2020. You ended up having a pretty long break from pro, obviously, I would say primarily due to COVID, but kind of what was that process like, being off from November of 2020 all the way to February of 2024, where you came back and lost a decision on LFA? But what was that like, almost 4 years off like? And then what does it feel like to be fighting more frequently, like you will be June 29th, Brawl in the Burgh 22 for 247 fighting championships at the Monroeville Convention Center?
So I was actually scheduled to have a fight, a rematch with Tanisha Tennant that May. The thing is that I ended up having complications with so I have celiac disease, which is
Oh no.
an autoimmune disorder where I can't eat gluten, and I have a hormone condition, and everything was combining those forces together. The complications nearly killed me. You
Oh,
know how whenever somebody's cutting weight too much and then they almost die? It was
sure.
like that, except I wasn't cutting water at all.
Mm.
I couldn't absorb any of the nutrients of the food that I was eating. I developed a bunch of food intolerances. I still have I have a nut allergy now because of the complications that I led. Like, I'll have that, I don't know. Sometimes those kind of things heal up, but that I'll probably have that forever too. But like, I couldn't eat watermelon, or I couldn't do dairy anymore. No avocado, no peanut butter, no, like, there was no stevia. There was a lot of different foods that I couldn't eat. Thankfully, I can have all of those now. But it was a long healing process that I actually had to stop training. And like, because I couldn't, I could barely, I got to the point where I could barely make it from my bed to the couch. I got that weak. And so I had maybe 18 months where I had to like just completely be off, and I had to focus on healing. I had to restrict my diet a lot more in order to give my gut time to heal and take I actually got help from, I got a good team of doctors. I had a hormone specialist, a nutritionist, and a Chinese medicine doctor. And those three together were the reason why I was able to heal up as fast as I was able to. Then I spent the next 18 months like retraining my body. I started by just walking down the street, and then I would come and do a little bit of a workout. I'd do a couple push-ups. Then eventually I could do jujitsu again. And so what is it? 2020, it's 2024. So 2023, I could finally do some jujitsu tournaments. And I was building up my strength doing that. And then I got to fight in February 2024 this year, got all healed up. So that was a long process, but that was the reason why it was so long.
Wow. Well, yeah, and that's in some ways just shows how significant, your health is just as a person. You got to be healthy as a person before fighting matters. And I give you a lot of credit, obviously your doctor team as well, for your perseverance to recover. But it makes sense, 18 months of being super sick, 18 months for recovery, that puts you at 3 years, and then to then build towards a fight. So I'm excited that you're going to be able to be healthy, number one, and then be back. You and your sister are known, obviously, as the Chase sisters in the Pittsburgh
Mhm.
area. When did you start training at Indio Dojo, and what has that been like for you? Obviously, you ended up having to take a break because of your medical issues, but I visited Indio Dojo last summer. I remember you guys weren't there that night, but I remember people talking about the fighting sisters. Both of you were are pros at the time. So what was it like with the fit with Indio? And then obviously hats off to you in your recovery. And what does it feel like emotionally to be able to be back? You're 25. You still have a great potential career ahead of you now that your health is under control.
So I started training at Indio Dojo in 2019. So my cousin had been doing jujitsu and training and doing jujitsu and Muay Thai there at Indio Dojo and doing the MMA. Ryan Kim, and he got my uncle involved, and then my uncle got us involved. So it was like this whole family thing coming together, where we got to train under Danilo Villafort. And I honestly, I couldn't ask for better a better gym to train at. Danilo runs a tight ship. He makes it's so fun there, but he doesn't take any crap. He makes sure that he takes care of all of his students, all of his uh fighters, whether they're at trying to become MMA fighters or they're just regular students coming in the gym. Um he always has people's health in mind, and pushing them to become like the best that they can be and become tough and get stronger. So it's been transformative in my career uh to have a place that not only values whenever I'm going hard, but also values my health and my well-being at the same time. So this is just is an absolute blessing to be a part of Indio Dojo.
That is great. I know Danilo is a great guy, and your Uncle Jeff is known as
Mhm.
Uncle Jeff there, and then of course Mikey. They're all just incredible coaches. Now that we are today is 2 weeks out from June 29th, you're on the Brawl in the Burgh 22 card. What are your thoughts on Elizabeth Schroeder, who's 4-4, very experienced, coming into her ninth pro fight? You're technically on paper coming in to your I guess would be sixth pro fight, but the Invicta tournaments were pro fights, but that didn't count because of the tournament
Yeah.
style. So obviously you guys are about even as far as number of pro MMA fights. So what are your thoughts on her? And do you want to give predictions? Kind of how are you feeling coming into that fight?
Well, first off, I'm glad that she took the fight. That's really grateful for that, because hey, it takes two to tango, right? Um, I'm absolutely going to just my plan is to smash, man. My plan is to absolutely smash. Uh, this girl is really well-rounded, but so am I. I have the best coaches that I can ask for. They're world class. They know the game well, and I feel like our strategy is gonna play out. But yes, absolutely, smash, smash.
Well, that's a very confident and kind of fun prediction to make, winning by smash. So, what was it like, being scheduled now that you're healthy, now that you've got an opponent? Because yes, a lot of fighters, your time away was due to health issues, but a lot of fighters have gaps on their record due to time away, due to not being able to get fights. You and Bridget are both on Bridget. You and Bridget are both on Bridget. Yeah, I think I got it right.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Are
you got it.
both Coach, yeah, are both on this card together, and it's your first time as pros being on the same card, same event as pros. What was it like when you fought as amateurs, both in sport karate and then in MMA? And what do you like about doing that again as a pro?
So, something that stands out about whenever we were fighting in sport karate, the one of the years we were at Super Grands, which was the pretty much the Super Bowl of the karate league that we competed in, where that was the one you waited for all year, where you would go win the world titles. We had in continuous fighting, which was pretty much, it was sort of like kickboxing, and the goal of continuous fighting was who could hit the scoring areas the most in 2 1-minute rounds. So it was a brawl, right? We had one year where both me and Bridget were in the same division because we were 15 to 17. We did not lose once in a double elimination tournament. The world titles was double elimination, and we fought for 4 hours. That's how long it took for us to go through it, but we did not lose one match. We just bowed out to each other whenever it came up to when we had ours, and then we went and like had fun. Like we went on the later at the grand finale, we fought each other, but we pretty much, we dominated the entire division. It was beautiful. Then when we were fighting amateur on the same cards for an MMA, in the back, it was getting each other ready, but not focusing on the other person. Really, when we were working with each other, we were focusing on our own opponent. We'd often have some training partners in the back that would be helping us so that we could also focus on ourselves. And then once the one sister fought, depending on who was going first in the card, the other sister, we just wouldn't watch each other. Because we needed to stay zoned in, because this is what our dream is what our job is. We're focusing on our own fight. So win or lose with the other one, we don't even talk about that until afterward. Like we're not worried about it. It's like, oh, okay. You might overhear it because you're in the same arena, right?
Sure.
You can also tell by the way that you just feel the energy, also because the coaches are going to coach your sister, and then they're going to come back and coach you. You can tell, right? But you don't focus on that.
Right.
You focus on yourself. And then afterward, we both celebrate with each other about the good things about what happened with the fights. So,
well, it's great with all of your sport karate and then amateur MMA that you've got that figured out, because it's a good thing to have figured out. Now that you're pros, you can continue your SOP, your standard operating procedure, that you kind of know what you do and don't do regarding each other fighting. It's an incredible card. I think Brawl in the Burgh 22, I believe, has 10 pro fights, which for a regional promotion is a big deal. On the pro side, obviously some great amateurs. Earlier in the day on the noon card, there's going to be some pro MMA, some amateur MMA, and some Muay Thai. So overall, it's going to be a lot of excitement. What do you think? This is going to be first time both of you are fighting for 247. 247 has become really the premier MMA for the Pittsburgh area. What's it like? And of course, Indio Dojo, you guys have Hoot Lee has a belt for 247. Evan DeRucci is in line for a belt. Obviously Ken Burris has fought. So what are your thoughts on being able to fight for 247?
It is amazing. I just love the fact that 247 is here in Pittsburgh, and I can have my friends and family can all come and see, because they would always ask me, when are you gonna fight here so that I can come watch? When are you gonna fight here? And for me, I've never fought in my hometown before. I've never fought in Pittsburgh. For Bridget has fought here, but I've personally have always had to travel in order to get fights. So this is amazing for me. Another thing that's really cool is this particular event is held at the Monroeville Convention Center, And I don't know if you are familiar with this, but there used to be a karate tournament, and that would run alongside the Pittsburgh Pro Fitness Expo.
Mm.
Um, and there would be a NAGA tournament going on at the same time, but I would compete in the karate tournament. So being there at that place, I already watched, what was it? I watched Evan DeRucci's sick knockout
Yeah.
on that card, and I had another teammate. I had Dakota. Dakota had a good win off of that. That was cool to see the MMA happening there. It was like a full circle. Like, this is really my hometown here, because this is also my karate hometown. I used to they actually, the people who were running that event, there's going to be a couple from that karate gym who are going to come and watch the fights as well. So I'm excited. It's going to be it's really feels like home. Really feels like home.
Well, that is a great segue for us to encourage everybody to get tickets to see the Chase sisters fight on the card. Go to 247fighting.com if you're going to be in person, which of course Hurricane wants you to be, or get them directly from India Dojo, the gym, or any of the fighters. If you're out of town or out of the area and you're going to do the pay-per-view, which I'm sure, Hurricane, you fought all over the place. You probably have fans from out of the area. They need to download the app 247 Live. It's really cool. The 247 Fighting Championship has their own app. Download the app, put it on your smart devices, your smart TV, and then get Brawl in the Burgh 22. Make sure to give Hurricane Hope credit. It's really cool. And another cool part about Monroeville Convention Center is it was supposed to have been closed and turned into a Hobby Lobby, which would have prevented it from ever being used in this night. So it's really cool. That did not go through. Hobby Lobby is going to be someplace else. And now 247 gets to do a great doubleheader event. Just incredible having you on the show. A shout out to you and your family, Jim. Obviously the White
Viper karate.
Viper for karate, for people that want to get into karate. That's an incredible gym. And then obviously the India Dojo for BJJ and MMA. I really appreciate you coming on. For Luke Payson, for MMA Fancast, this has been the first of hopefully many interviews with Hurricane Hope Chase. Thanks so much for coming on. June 29th, Monroeville Convention Center, 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Burgh 22. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
You got it.